Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you guys about fishing nets, also called Brazil's double-edged sword. My name is Riley McInnis, and for those of you that don't know the expression double-edged sword, it means something that is good and bad at the same time. So today we're going to cover three main topics: how fishing nets affect the ocean, how fishing nets affect the fishing industry in Brazil, and how Brazil is trying to solve the problem of fishing nets. Some of you might not know, but Brazil is located south of Canada. You can see Canada's up there at the top, and it is in South America. Today, I'm going to be talking about two main locations in Brazil, Bahia and Santa Catarina, which you can see on those little dots on the map. As I already said, our first topic is going to be about fishing nets and the ocean. 640,000 tons of fishing equipment is dumped in the ocean every year. A large percentage of that is actually fishing nets. To put that in perspective, a blue whale, the largest mammal to ever live, can grow up to 105 tons. So that's the same weight as 6,096 blue whales worth of fishing gear being dumped in the ocean. Just giving you guys that number to put some things in perspective for you. Ghost fishing is something that can happen once a net gets dumped in the ocean. It is when the net keeps catching sea creatures even though it is no longer being used by a fisherman. In Bahia, Brazil, the fishermen say that there's a direct relationship between ghost nets and how many fish and damaged coral they see in the water. So the more they find ghost nets, the less fish they see in the area and the more damaged coral they notice too. Ghost fishing can do a lot of damage to an ecosystem, especially to marine life found in Brazil like dolphins, turtles, fish, and coral. And it can lead to an event called cyclic catching. I'm going to try to explain cyclic catching to you by using this diagram. Basically, how it works is we start with the dark blue bubble on the left, and it is in this bubble a fish or another sea creature gets stuck in a ghost net that's just floating around in the ocean. Then another fish or sea creature is attracted to the first fish. So either they want to eat it or maybe they're just curious. And then they also get stuck in that net. So it kind of just keeps going from there. When another fish sees the two fish stuck in the net, they also get interested, or maybe they get hungry and they also get stuck in the net. And this can keep going and going and going until there's a whole bunch of fish stuck in one fishing net that's just floating, or a ghost net. Bycatch is something that can also happen. So, fishermen that are still using fishing nets can still be a problem. It causes something called bycatch, like I said, which is when non target fish get stuck in a fishing net while fishermen are collecting fish. Non target means a fish or creature they weren't trying to catch. So, if a fisherman in Brazil is trying to catch fish, and they end up catching dolphins in their fishing nets, this would be considered a non target fish. Fishing nets can also hurt coral reefs too. Coral reefs and seabeds can be very sensitive areas and they can be very easy to damage, especially when you used ghost fishing nets. If a coral reef is damaged, it also hurts the fish that live there, the fish that need the reef for food and a place to live. Bahia, researchers found that the more nets they would find in the ocean, the more hurt, dying, or dead coral they'd also find. So now we're on to our second topic, which is fishing nets and the fishing industry. Brazil is one of the most productive fishing nations in the world. That means that there are a lot of fishermen there and they catch lots and lots of fish. This also means that they use lots and lots of fishing nets. But there are different kinds of fishing nets out there, and they are each used in different ways. The three mainly seen in Brazil are purse seine, gill nets, and the other one is used in bottom trawling. Purse-seine is a bag-like net that is wrapped around a school of fish and then cinched, which means it's pulled tight at the top to make sure that none of the fish get out. Gill nets are like a wall of net with holes in it, and when fish swim into it, they get stuck. Finally, bottom trawling is when a heavy net is dragged through the bottom of the ocean and it moves. As it moves, and fish get scooped up into it. Purse-seine fishing results in very little bycatch, which we had mentioned earlier, if you remember, less than 1% actually, and it is very productive for fishermen. So they aren't in the water as much as other fishermen that use different kinds of nets. Gill nets have high levels of bycatch, and the nets themselves get broken pretty easily because they are just left in the water for a long time. Bottom trawling has lower levels of bycatch, but it causes a lot of damage to the seafloor, especially to coral, like we mentioned earlier. When it comes to what nets we see in Brazil, it actually differs a lot by where you're looking. In Bahia, a lot of broken and thrown away lobster traps are what they mainly find. But in Santa Catarina, mostly gill nets were found floating around in the water or stuck on coral. Ghost nets actually hurt the fishing industry too, not just the ocean. Fishermen in Bahia say that up to 90% of them find ghost nets. This circle represents how this hurts the fishing industry. Ghost nets kill fish that get stuck in them. So that means that there are less fish in the fishing zones than there used to be. This means that fishermen have to fish more to get the same amount of fish that they used to. That ends up causing more nets to get thrown away in the ocean, which causes more fish to get stuck in the ghost nets and die. Then the cycle kind of starts over again, and it keeps getting harder and harder for fishermen to catch enough fish. And it's honestly a very dangerous circle. Talked about how ghost nets hurt the coral reefs, but they also hurt the fishing industry too. If coral gets stuck in ghost nets and killed, then the fish that live there or eat off the coral either leave or die. And the fishermen who usually fish for these types of fish start noticing that they're not around anymore. So this means no coral, which means no coral dwelling fish, which means no fish for the fishermen. You might be wondering, why do fishermen throw nets in the water if it's going to hurt the ecosystem and their jobs? Well, there's actually a lot of reasons why, and they are storms or bad weather, operational damage, improper gear use, high disposal costs, lack of disposal areas, lack of space on fishing boats, and no easy way to get the gear. So it can be very hard for fishermen to get the gear out of the water and throw it out where it's supposed to go. Finally, we're going to talk about how Brazil is trying to fix the problems caused by fishing nets. It is a very hard problem to fix for three main reasons. Finding the nets in the water can be hard, and it's almost impossible to figure out who originally owned them. Finding out who is dumping the equipment is hard too, and costs a lot of money. And throwing out or burning the nets also costs a lot of money, so it's a very expensive thing and problem to fix. But Brazil is trying a number of things to fix the issue. They're trying to enforce new and better laws to control the impact of thrown away fishing gear, like fishing nets. They are sending diving teams and boats to find the gear and nets, and they're actually developing new techniques or new strategies to find the gear, which is really good. They're also trying to promote purse-seine fishing, like I had mentioned before, because of how productive it is and because it results in less fishing nets being thrown in the ocean because the nets are better taken care of when they're not sitting in the water. They are also trying to add biodegradable materials into fishing equipment to make it less harmful to the ecosystem. Just in case you guys didn't know, biodegradable means capable of being disposed or decomposed or broken down over time by the environment or a living animal like an organism. Finally, I just want to give you a little overview of the whole presentation. The problems caused by fishing nets are super complicated and it can be really hard, even for a big country like Brazil, to find solutions to it. But they are taking some really good steps in the right direction. If there's anything you guys can think of that you might be able to help with the problem, or even any ideas you have about it, I would really encourage you to share. And I want to thank you all so much for listening to my presentation. Here is just some of my literature cited or my resources that I used to do all my research. And once again, I just want to really thank you for listening. Thank you.